It's not an uncommon thing for one manufacturer to own or buy another manufacturer. Most recently, Tata bought Land Rover and Jaguar. And over the last few years, it seems Volkswagen is wanting to buy just about every manufacturer under the sun. But occasionally in these corporate marriages, there is a divorce. And there has been one of those recently. In a move that affects its operations worldwide, Mazda has split from longtime partner Ford. On the one hand, it means a whole lot of corporate reshuffling and other boring admin, but on the other hand, it means the company now has to assert itself as a separate entity. In South Africa, they're doing that by updating the current CX-5 and launching 2 new models, including this Mazda 6. Not that I speak from experience or anything, but apparently one thing that people do when they've ended a long-term relationship is try and make the ex jealous by getting into shape or raising their social standing. And it seems that's exactly what Mazda is trying to do, because from being nondescript, thanks to their new design direction, the 6 is a seriously good-looking car. It's all narrow apertures and sweeping lines. Even if it isn't your cup of tea, you have to admit that it's no small amount better than the previous generation. It's especially good in profile, where you can appreciate its low sweeping shape. The new 6 combines a great balance of quiet sophistication and just a hint that it may offer some fun driving as well. Where its major competition, the Honda Accord, has opted for a safe, fairly plain look, the Mazda 6 hasn't been scared to go with a look that makes it stand out, and I, for one, am very glad about that. There is a lot of talk in the Mazda press stuff about this car, about the 6 being able to be at one with the driver, which, from my admittedly cynical point of view, is a tall order for this kind of car, where things like practicality and comfort are far bigger concerns than a pure driving experience. Still, hasn't stopped them from trying. You will no doubt see and hear a lot about Mazda's Sky Active technology. Very simply, it's a collection of elements including engine, gearbox and chassis that have been designed to be as efficient and engaging as possible. But ironically, the 6 is impressive because they've deleted an element that could actually engage one of your senses. That element I'm talking about is engine noise. We're driving the 2.2 litre diesel, and although it's 129 kilowatts and 420 newton meters feel kind of the way you'd expect them to, and so does the 6-speed automatic gearbox, what makes this drive so impressive is that this engine is incredibly quiet, and not just for a diesel, for any engine. Even under load, the noise you'd expect to hear is hardly there, and quite frankly, I'd happily trade a bit of sportiness for a lack of diesel clatter. The other engine options available are both petrol, a 114 kilowatt 2-litre with a choice of manual or automatic gearbox, and a 138 kilowatt 2.5 petrol automatic. Another advantage of that lack of engine noise is that it enhances the sense of a smooth and comfortable drive. Even when you're in a hurry on surfaces that are less than perfect, the 6 always feels very together. It's not completely isolated though. It still gives you an okay idea of what's going on with the road underneath you, and the steering is nice and direct. Completing the new Mazda 6 package is a redesigned interior. We're driving the top-of-the-range Atenza version, which includes some extras like a few more speakers and electric seats and a blind spot monitor, and that's about it. And that means the standard spec across the 6 range is pretty high, with a multifunction steering wheel and Bluetooth and dual-zone climate control, all packaged in a simple layout with good materials. Rather than go with fake wood or strips of aluminium-looking plastic, Mazda have opted for some unique touches, like the, I don't know exactly what it's called, but the reddish-tinged dashboard strip is pretty cool. It's all well laid out too, with good ergonomics and a nice attention to detail, and lots of space. This car did a fine stand-in job as our crew vehicle for this shoot, swallowing the entire catalogue of our gear with no hassle. The Mazda 6 is a very strong starting point on the company's newfound journey of freedom. It's got a good interior, a very refined diesel engine, and a comfortable ride setup. And you might argue that it's got competition that can match it on any or all of those fronts. But there's one thing that this car has that's better than anybody else, and that is a real sense of style. The 2.2-litre turbo diesel has respectable figures, but more than the power delivery, it's the refinement that impresses. It's one of the quietest diesels we've ever driven. Mazda's striking new design is matched to a comfortable and spacious interior that's also well-spec'd. The overall impression is of a well-thought-out and surprising package.
It's been about 2 years since Nissan launched its luxury Infiniti brand in South Africa. The current model range consists of a medium sedan, a coupe and a cabriolet, a crossover and an SUV. But there's also this newcomer, Infiniti's first compact premium sedan. It's called the Q50, and Infiniti hopes that this car will help to put the brand on the map.
Like Toyota's Lexus brand, Infiniti belongs to a mainstream automaker, in this case Nissan, but it only reached South Africa in 2012. The Q50 competes with some tough players in a tough segment. Think Mercedes-Benz C-Class, BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 and Lexus IS. But the newcomer is also Infiniti's best shot yet at achieving viable sales volumes.
The Q50 is a handsome enough car, but it does struggle to project a convincing brand identity. It's very much an upmarket design, but the problem is that it's too generic, almost too bland. And in fact, the main problem here is that there's a lack of brand recognition. However, close up, there's a lot to like.
The silhouette is sleek, with the extended nose and bold grille exuding a certain amount of aggression, while the shorter rear and profiled haunches suggest some visual muscle. The unusual rear door, which intersects the C-pillar, is an eye-catching design detail, but nothing here breaks any real new ground.
One of the highlights of the Q50 is the interior. It oozes class and quality, and it has a lot of upmarket finishes. Also of interest is the high tech which is available, including keyless entry, a touchscreen display, and a whole bunch of personalization options.
Q50 owners can set up personal profiles which will register settings across 10 function categories for up to 4 different drivers. There's even a collection of apps accessed via the touchscreen. The space offering is good front and rear, with legroom appearing more generous than all but the new generation C-Class. The boot has a 500-litre capacity, which is also competitive in this segment.
The Q50 Diesel Sport is powered by a 2.2-litre turbo diesel engine with a maximum power output of 125 kilowatt and a torque peak of 400 newton meters. Those figures fairly competitive in this segment, but what isn't competitive is the refinement. The engine is actually quite agricultural, very gruff and suffers from lag, and that's simply not good enough.
The 7-speed auto gearbox offers manual override and shift paddles, but shift response is leisurely. Sport mode, one of 4 selectable drive modes, sharpens throttle response and makes gear shifts more incisive.
One of the more controversial aspects of the Q50 is something that Infiniti calls direct adaptive steering. It's basically steering by wire, which means that the steering input is electronically transferred to the steering rack, and there isn't really a mechanical link. There is actually a mechanical link, but it's there purely for backup. It's something that a lot of people feel makes the steering feel disconnected, but in practice that's really not the case. It's actually quite decent, and in sport mode you can add extra heft and extra response to the steering itself. It's not quite as good as the best mechanical systems, but it's certainly an intriguing and very different take on steering systems.
Direct adaptive steering is a 12,000 Rand option on the Sport, and it's probably not worth the money, but it provides a fascinating glimpse of the future. It also includes active lane control, which automatically prevents the car from straying from one lane to the next. Together with options such as active cruise control and blind spot warning, the Q50 offers a high degree of autonomous operation.
While this Q50 is called the Diesel Sport, the performance isn't exactly athletic. The 0 to 100 time, 8.5 seconds, top speed 237 kilometers an hour. But the biggest problem here is that while it cruises quite well, there's a fair amount of lag, and the gearbox isn't the most responsive either.
The diesel also promises impressive fuel consumption with a factory figure of just 5 litres per 100 kilometres for the combined cycle. That may be possible in ideal conditions, but in traffic, attempts to overcome the lag results in lots of throttle input. In practice, our figure came to 8.5 litres per 100 kilometres, which isn't bad for a luxury sedan weighing close on 1.8 tonnes.
The Infiniti Q50 Diesel Sport offers buyers in the compact premium segment with an intriguing alternative to all your usual luxury brands. It's handsome in a neutral kind of way, it has a lot of tech, it also has a lot of spec, and it drives pretty decently as well. It's even fairly competitively priced, and it's really only the gruffness of the diesel engine that counts against it. However, for those seeking something a little different, this Q50 might just fit the bill.
An elegant, sophisticated look linked to loads of high-tech promises an attractive and individual alternative to the usual suspects in the premium compact sedan segment. Pity then that the diesel engine is unrefined and laggy, while the gearbox could be more responsive, and the brand needs a higher profile too.